Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay. So we were up to N's in the alphabet, to the consonant N in the alphabet. I want to backtrack today. I want to backtrack today because I didn't do a country, and it came up in the news this week. And I thought, okay, let's go back and take a look. And what I found was very interesting. I wish I hadn't skipped over it. So now we're gonna do it. So here is the news story. It appeared this week. The Irish women's national basketball team refused to shake hands with the Israeli women's national team ahead of the first game of the 225 Women's Eurobasket qualifier in Riga, Latvia on Thursday. I saw that, yes.
I just want to make a real strong comment.
Gary, I can't even.
Oh, God, I keep forgetting.
I'll speak up for you.
I want to make a strong comment before you continue. I read the article online, and the other side of it is that one of the Israeli players, I say, provoked the issue because she made some comments politically about the Irish being anti-Semitic, which even if they're true, they weren't appropriate at the time and mixed politics and sports.
Yes, this is all true, and as I'm getting to that.
Okay, just wanted to be
Yeah.
fair.
So, Basketball Ireland, the governing body of the sport of Ireland, said in a statement that the team would not take part in pre-match formalities, including shaking hands with Israel prior to tip-off, as a direct result of recent comments made by Israeli players and coaching staff, including inflammatory and wholly inaccurate, this is coming from the Irish side, accusations of anti-Semitism published on official Israeli Federation channels. This includes the exchanging of gifts, formal handshakes, national anthem. On Wednesday, Israeli basketball player Dor Saar called the Irish team quite anti-Semitic in an interview. It's known that they are quite anti-Semitic, and it's no secret, and maybe that's why a strong game is expected. Prior to tip-off, Ireland stood for the national anthem. Players did not shake hands. Israel went on to defeat Ireland. So yes, we don't have at our disposal the facts. It seems like, as Gary correctly pointed out, the Irish basketball team was accused by the Israeli team or someone on the Israeli team of being espousing anti-Semitic positions and saying anti-Semitic things. The Irish basketball team was offended and therefore refused to shake hands with the Israeli team. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at the history of Judaism in Ireland, because after I read that, I thought, gosh, I don't know anything about Jews in Ireland. Is Ireland anti-Semitic? Maybe it is. I don't know. You know? Has anyone been to Ireland? Okay, maybe. Oh, it's okay. So after you finish, then give us a brief. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just see when I was in Ireland in different cities, there were big signs above, on the hill, Free Palestine, and when I talk to people, it's my experience that they just don't like Israel and don't think they compare themselves to Israel and Palestinians to the fight they had against British.
Great. Thank you. Gary, why don't you tell us a little bit about your trip, and then come and tell us a little bit about your trip.
Well, just to keep everybody happy, I didn't talk about Israel, period. I came to enjoy the country. But I did ask our guide how many synagogues there were in Ireland, and he said 3. There's 2 in Dublin and 1 in Cork. Not anymore? Not anymore. Okay, then you have to update him. So anyway, but it's a beautiful island. I never realized why they called it the Emerald Island to the degree. It is so green and so lush, and the geography is incredibly spectacular.
Did they treat you nice, the people in general that you
You know what?
in the store?
You know what? When you're at
Did the people treat him nice, was the question.
Sorry.
personally, they were very kind and good-hearted, and particularly fun when we went to the pubs. I mean that. True. Huh?
Well, we were in Ireland in the 1990s. I had earned a trip from all the sales that I had that year, so it was a free trip for us. And we went to Shannon. We flew to Shannon, and we get off, and it was late at night. And I tell you, they couldn't have been nicer. They made sure we had food. They were absolutely the most lovely people. We just had an incredible time. I wound up driving the Ring of Kerry. No, but I drove, Gary.
Huh?
I drove.
Oh, you drove.
I drove. Huh? It was not the best experience of my life. And we got to Dublin, and I tell you, the driving on the wrong side of the road, on the wrong side of the car, they have everything mixed up there. I don't understand it. And it was so, what's the word?
Scary.
Not scary, but nerve-wracking, totally nerve-wracking. That I said, when we get to Dublin, Mike, we had a rental car. I said, I don't care. I'm just dropping this car at the hotel. I don't care what they do with it. I am not going to the rental place. That is it. That's my story, but we had nothing Jewish there.
All right.
So we're going to learn about Jewish stuff today. All right. The first thing that I want to do is define some terms for us, because these terms are very often confused, and I bet we don't all know what the difference is. So first, we have Great Britain. Then we have the UK, the United Kingdom, and then we have the British Isles. Okay. Who can tell me what comprises Great Britain?
The United Kingdom plus Ireland.
Almost. That's the United Kingdom. So Great Britain is England, Scotland, and Wales. That's Great Britain. What is the United Kingdom? The United Kingdom is Great Britain plus Northern Ireland. What are the British Isles? Everything. Okay? So it's the addition of Northern Ireland that makes Great Britain the United Kingdom. Okay. When we're talking about Ireland, what religion are we talking about in the main part of Ireland, Southern Ireland? Catholic. What are we talking about in Northern Ireland? Mainly Protestant, with a Catholic minority. When we're talking about England, because they figure in, Protestant. Very good. Okay. All of this is background information that we have to know in order to speak about the Jewish experience. Okay.
I see you got rid of the green pen for this orange one.
It's the only one that was up there. It was the only one that's up there. So we're going with orange today, folks. Happy Valentine's Day. I guess orange is closer to pink than green is, right? So sort of appropriate. Okay. The green is very Irish. Yes, that's true. That would have been interesting, but okay. We're not there. Okay. Yes. The green would be for Southern Ireland. The orange will be for Northern Ireland. Very nice, because the flag is green and orange. Okay. So, in 1079 CE, 1079 CE, 5 Jews came with gifts for the king of Ireland. The gifts were accepted, and the Jews were sent home. That's the first mention of anything regarding Jews in Irish history. Just said 5 came, brought gifts, and they were sent home. Very nice. They were sent back to where they came from. They were not allowed to stay. Didn't say. It didn't say. They just said from overseas. And so, 1079. What's going on in Jewish history elsewhere in 1079? I just want you to have association. That's, That's what? Crusades, okay. Just about the Crusades. The first crusade is just about 1100. So it's just a little bit before the first crusade. Yes, that's good. That's good. Rashi, this is Rashi's time. So 5 Jews came. In 1169, the Norman invasion, there is one mention of a Jew, Josce, Yasha, maybe? Jew of Gloucester, an English Jew who helped finance the Norman invasion of Ireland. By 1232, probably there was a community, because some of the documents say that they use the phrase, in the custody of the king's Judaism in Ireland, meaning that the Jews were a possession of the king, which we know happened all throughout medieval Europe, that Jews were protected by the king. And the kings and the other nobles brought them in for the same reasons that they always bring them in, because we were really smart. And we knew about trade and finance and accounting and these things, yes. So they needed us to invigorate and expand their economies. These Jews, this Jewish community probably was near or in Dublin, according to the papers. In 1241, there's a document that prohibits property from being sold to Jews. Okay, and that wasn't unusual. I mean, all throughout Europe, we were discriminated against that way. In 1490, remember, in 1297, we weren't citizens anywhere. We wouldn't be citizens for a long, long, long time, right? So not till 1800. So 500 years from now, we'll get our citizenship. But we couldn't be citizens anywhere. In 1290, recall that the Jews are expelled from France. So we think about the expulsion from Spain and Portugal, 1492. We were expelled from France long before that. Say again? I mean, England and France. In 1290, we were expelled from England, and then Philip the Fair expels us from France. Yes. In 1497, right after the expulsion from Spain and Portugal, Sephardic Jews come to Ireland. Moving forward now till 1657, Oliver Cromwell rescinds the edict that Jews were not protected by the Constitution. So someone tell me a little bit about Oliver Cromwell, because he's very important. So we've heard the name before, right? Okay, Janice, between kings, Oliver Cromwell ran England. Okay, good. Between kings, Janice said, between kings, Oliver Cromwell ran England. Okay, good.
One thing that I saw a TV show, oh, sorry.
I'm getting the evil eye from the back.
I saw a TV show some time back, and I remember the story of his life was very interesting because he came from very, very poor people, and he was so smart and knew how to work all the political angles, and he rose up from nothing into this very, very high position in England.
Very nice. Okay, yes?
So from my recollection, Oliver Cromwell is despised in Ireland because he brought the Protestants there, and he butchered a lot of the villages in Ireland.
Yes, he does conquer Ireland. So we could do an entire class on Oliver Cromwell very, very easily. But for the sake of our information today, Charles I, King of England, is executed for treason. Oliver Cromwell steps in as the Lord Protector, and he abolishes the monarchy and makes England a republic. And it had to do with uniting and keeping united Scotland. And then after Cromwell dies, Charles II ascends the throne and reestablishes the monarchy. But Cromwell is seen during that time as, by some, as a great hero. By others, he's despised. Yes. Okay. In let's see. So this is 1657. So we're in the 17th century now. By the 17th century, there are also Jews in Northern Ireland. In 1660, we have the first synagogue in Dublin. In 1718, we have the first cemetery in Dublin. And in 1846, Jews are allowed to become citizens. So 1846. So when does our emancipation happen first? When are we the first to get citizenship, and where? Napoleon and France, exactly. And what was Napoleon's condition for giving us citizenship? It's just important because it's very easy to forget all these things. We just keep going over them.
That the Jews be citizens of France first and Jews second.
Very nice, very nice. So Napoleon's offer to the Jews of France was, I will give you the rights of citizenship. I will give you your civil rights, the right to vote, the right to own property, etc., if you renounce your commitment to the people called Israel, to peoplehood and a homeland somewhere. Napoleon said, you must be loyal to France first. In other words, you are French citizens who happen to practice a religion called Judaism, just like there are French citizens who happen to practice a religion called Catholicism and French Protestantism. Okay. So you have to be French citizens above all. And the Jews of France agreed. And they became, that was the first time in our history that we get to be citizens of the country. Okay, so 1846, 46 years later, we get to be citizens in Ireland. From 1845 to 1852, there is a very big famine in Ireland, and the documents indicate that there were many Jews who helped organize relief efforts, including, and most prominently probably, Baron Rothschild. No problem, no problem. Stuff happens, it's not a big deal. Okay. There is an increase in immigration in the late 19th century, in the late 1800s. In 1870, we get the establishment of the Belfast Hebrew congregation in Northern Ireland, which is an Ashkenazi congregation. In 1871, there were 258 Jews. In Dublin mostly, in the Republic of Ireland in the south. In 1881, there were 453 Jews. So almost, kind of like almost double, not quite, from 1871 to 1881 in 10 years. Where did they come from? They came from Germany and they came from England. So now think about that in our history as well. We have immigration into New York mostly from Germany when? Right around the same time, right? And what kinds of Jews came into the United States at that time? German Jews, yes. Well-to-do Jews, yes. More secular, correct. Education? Educated Jews, yes. So in the late 1800s, we have a first wave of immigration by German Jews who are wealthy, educated, assimilated, and they rise to fairly high positions within the Jewish community in New York. Okay. 1881 is kind of a seminal year. What happens in 1881? Say again? Great pogroms as a result of the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, which was blamed on Jews, but Jews had nothing to do with it. But it was blamed on Jews, and therefore it unleashed a series of pogroms and massacres. So now we have Jews from Eastern Europe and Russia who are leaving to escape the pogroms. Where do they go? They come to the U.S. and they also go to Israel. This is the first wave of the Aliyot to Israel. Jews who want to try to establish a homeland and who want to begin the process by building up Israel. Because remember, in 1881, Palestine, what was Palestine like? Empty, desert, mosquitoes, rocks. I mean, it was not a hospitable place at all. Not at all. And it had a Muslim majority, an Arab Muslim majority who lived there. There were some Jews there. There have always been some Jews there, but they were a distinct minority. They were mostly very studious Jews who kind of kept to themselves, And but there were Jews there, but by far significant Arab Muslim majority. And then these waves of Jews started coming from Eastern Europe and Russia. And all of a sudden, the Arab population was like, wait, what's going on here? Wait. No. Because the Jewish immigrants went there and they were all gung-ho about rebuilding Palestine. Yay, whoa, we're going to make our homeland. And the Arab population, wait. Homeland? What are you talking about? This is our land. You are dhimmis, remember? You are second-class citizens. Behave like it. The Jews would have none of that. And they started buying up lots of land from the Muslim Arab population. That's going to create huge problems later on in history, as we know. These Jews come to the United States. Huge waves of immigrations, late 1800s, early 1900s, from Eastern Europe and Russia. That's where your grandparents came from. Absolutely. That's where many of our ancestors came during that huge wave, through Ellis Island, through other ports as well, but mainly through Ellis Island. And these Jews, in contrast to the German Jews, were what? Say again? Peasants. Poor. They believed in folk superstitions. Uneducated. More religious. All these things are true. And they got to the United States, and the German Jews, who had already been here and established themselves, were appalled. They were like, oh my God, you're embarrassing us. What kinds of people are you? And it created a very difficult situation. So in 1881, some of those Jews went to Ireland. By 19...
The United States and didn't like it, and then they went to Ireland?
No. To Ireland, yes.
I went to a museum in Cork, and there is one room dedicated to Jews, to Jewish history of Cork. And there was this story that how they got there, the first Jews in late 1900s, they were on a ship from somewhere from Russia going to New York. And they stopped in Ireland. And the captain told them, this is New York. And
Oh, gosh.
they go down, they figure out that it's much better than Russia, and they stay there, most of them, because they didn't have money to sail all
How
the
interesting.
way.
How interesting. How interesting. Yes. So by 1901, so we're talking between 1881 and 1901, when all of these pogroms were happening and when all of these Jews were moving around to try to escape persecution, the population of Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, ballooned up to 3,771. Half of them lived in Dublin, 2,200 of them, and the rest lived in various other cities. In Northern Ireland at that time, there were 763 Jews. So by 1904, that population had ballooned up to 4,800. There were new synagogues. There were prominent members of business, academic, political, sports figures. So the Jews had kind of established themselves and were doing fairly well. Also in 1984, anti-Semitic acts, there was a boycott of the Jewish businesses who were living in Limerick, Ireland at the time. In 1937, Ireland establishes constitutional protection for Jews. And by the 1940s, we now have 5,500 Jews in Ireland. So things are going well. Okay. Now, 1939, 1940s, we're talking about World War II. And so in 1939, 10,000 Jewish children from Germany and Czechoslovakia came to Ireland on the Kindertransport. A number of them were settled in Northern Ireland, but some were in Republic of Ireland, Southern Ireland as well. During World War II, Ireland was neutral. They didn't take sides, clearly. Why is that? Gary asked, do you know why? Gary, come forward. Susie's laser beams are coming at me. I'm going to get,
Okay.
I'm going to get like incinerated on the spot.
Because they had this historic animosity towards the English, who had brutalized them for generations and centuries, and therefore the decision was not to take sides, even though there were a lot of Irishmen who volunteered in the armies of the Western European countries. Officially, they didn't take sides.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. And so, in 1939 and 1940, what we see in Ireland is a fair amount of anti-Semitism and a whole lot of what the research that I looked at says indifference. They just didn't care what was going on to the Jews in mainland Europe. By 1948, there's a large drop in the population to Ireland, in Ireland, and that should be understandable for us, right? 1948, the State of Israel comes into being. All Jews, many Jews, some Jews, want to go to Israel because it's much safer for them there. And they left for Israel. Some left for the UK, and some left for the US. They were looking for better economic prospects. And part of the problem in Ireland is that there was a lot of assimilation and a lot of Jews who converted in order to marry. So the Irish rules said if you were going to be married, it had to be under a Catholic ceremony. So many Jews converted in order to be married. If they met somebody outside the faith and they wanted to marry, yeah, what's new? And this immigration move into Israel after 1948, as we all know, happens all around, especially in the surrounding countries for Israel, right? There were very large populations of Jews in Iraq, what is now Iraq, Syria, Morocco, all the surrounding countries. And what ended up happening with the establishment of the State of Israel basically was a population exchange. And this happens sometimes during wars. It happened in Bosnia-Herzegovina and other places as well. That some folks are kicked out and others move in, right? So the way you'll hear it often portrayed is that the Arabs kicked us out of their countries, which they did. They did. I mean, Iraq had a huge Jewish population stemming from Babylonian times, because ancient Babylonia is present-day Iraq. And we had the academies, we had a huge population. They were told to leave. Their belongings were confiscated. They were kicked out. And on the other side, we kicked out Muslim Arabs, Palestinian Arabs. We kicked them out from Israel. We did. And anyone who says we didn't is lying. We did. Many left on their own because the Arab countries said to them, look, we're about to obliterate Israel, or Palestine at the time. No, Israel now. We're about to obliterate Israel. Leave. And once we level it, you can go back and run the country. And so many left, thinking that they were going to come back. But we also kicked out, Israel also kicked out a lot. They just did. And so there was a population exchange. Lots of Jews moving from Arab countries into Israel, lots of Arabs in Israel moving outside into the Arab countries. Okay. So this happened as well in terms of an exodus from Ireland because they wanted more safety and better economic, say again? Conditions, better economic conditions, better economic opportunities. So this is kind of interesting. In 2006, Tesco, which is like here, Vaughn's, Safeway, Ralph's, are it's like the largest supermarket chain in England. Tesco had to apologize for selling the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Do we remember what the Protocols of the Elders of Zion were? It was a fabrication put out in the early 20th century in Russia that said Jews were plotting to take over the world. And it was used by many for anti-Semitic and anti-Semitic behavior against Jews. And we talked, I think it was last week, about Henry Ford and how prominent that was for him. Okay, in 2022, so we're very recent now, there were 2,193 Jews in Ireland, and 70 to 80. I thought that was kind of funny. 70 to 80, really? Let's say 75. There were 75 Jews in Northern Ireland. How did they measure that? Because they looked at the membership rolls of the Belfast Hebrew congregation, and there were approximately between 70 and 80 members. Today, there are 2 synagogues in Dublin. One of them is Orthodox and one of them is Reform. The Cork synagogue closed. And there's one synagogue in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, which is Orthodox. And in 2023, folks, we have our first kosher restaurant in Dublin, right? It's called Deli 613. Wow. So that's pretty great. Chabad must be there, and I'm sure that's the Orthodox congregations. I'm sure. Yes, Gary.
I remember reading about a Jewish man, I forget his name, but I think his first name was Teddy, who was actually the mayor of Dublin.
I don't know. That there was a Jewish mayor of Dublin. That's the point. That's great. Whose first name was Teddy. Okay, so we have 2 organizations now that figure sort of prominently, or one that figures prominently now, one that did figure in Jewish Gentile relations in Ireland. So in the past, we had the IRA, right? The Irish Republican Army. In our lifetimes, I remember when I was young, I remember hearing about them, and I wasn't quite sure what they were about, but I remember hearing about them. And today we have Sinn Féin, Sinnfein, which is the largest political party. What were they fighting for? Because they were both fighting for basically the same thing. So they were fighting for the end of British rule and the reunification of Ireland. And Sinn Féin now wants a united Ireland without British rule. So these are groups and political parties who want Britain out of the equation, right? So how is Britain involved in the equation to begin with? We talked about that, right? When we're talking about the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland is involved. Ireland, the southern part of Ireland, is independent. But Northern Ireland is still part of the United Kingdom. So what these groups want is they want the British to get out of Northern Ireland, and they want Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland to be united, right? And you know, as we see in many places in the world, it is a problem a lot with religion. The North is mostly Protestant, and the larger Southern Ireland is the Republic of Ireland is Catholic. And the difference in religions makes it very difficult for them to unite. One thing that's kind of interesting is that Northern Ireland right now has its very first Catholic leader. So Northern Ireland, which is majority Protestant, now has a Catholic leader who is pushing for reunification. Did you have a, Gerald Goldberg is the Jewish mayor of Cork now? 2003. Okay. We're everywhere. It's wonderful. You got to use this. There we go.
Well, you haven't mentioned NATO. Now, Great Britain is out of NATO, and Ireland is in NATO, right? So now there's the problems with trade there between Northern and Southern Ireland, right?
There are indications that there is a relaxation, and that Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland are beginning to cooperate with each other and trade with each other. Yes, and so these groups want the reunification of Ireland, and they want England out of Northern Ireland. Okay. What else do I want to say? Okay, Great Britain becomes Great Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales in 1707. The United Kingdom, they add Northern Ireland in 1927. And so in 1914, Ireland becomes independent. England retains the northern part. The southern part becomes independent. And so how do we talk about what is the Irish feeling about Jews? So we should point out that Sinn Féin, several leaders of Sinn Féin have been openly anti-Semitic to Jews, openly anti-Semitic, and they're the largest political party. The church in Ireland has been, on many occasions, openly anti-Semitic. So my takeaway from reading the research is that, you know, we don't think of Ireland potentially as a terribly anti-Semitic country, but I think there are pretty strong undercurrents there of mistrust at the best, distrust at best, and hatred at the worst for Jews by many. And it's promulgated by the political parties and the church. As I said, this article, when I first read it, I thought, wow, okay, they won't shake their hands. I don't know anything about Jews in Ireland. I think it's time we figure out is it possible, is it credible that that team could have made anti-Semitic remarks? Based on what I have learned about the history of Ireland and the history of Jews, I would say it is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. We don't know the facts, and so we can't make a determination yet, as Gary correctly pointed out, about that basketball team, because we don't have both sides, and we don't know all the facts, and it would be premature to make a complete decision about it. But it opened the door to the question, which is why I looked at it. Yes? Final comment for the day. Oh, okay. You have one more thing, too? Great.
I said it before, but I want to repeat that the Irish, because they fought against Britain for so long and found independence from them, they really think about Israel and Palestinians, their struggle, the similar to what they...
And so they're more sympathetic to the Palestinians.
Yes, they consider, them being like the Palestinians, and they should win like they won their land.
Thank you. Thank you. And last comment, and then you take your break.
This is very personal. We had our Havurah started here, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. And we had a group of about 18 people. We're now down to 9. But in this group, we had the most fun-loving, happiest, just delightful man who was brought up in Ireland. And Jewish, of course.
Talk about his experiences.
Oh, well, that's part of Ireland, Belfast. Would you like to talk? His wife is here. Would you like to talk a little bit, Linda, about him? Okay. Can I bring this to you?
Yes, of course.
It's emotional for me.
What was his experience like in Northern Ireland?
Well, okay, so he was there from a little boy. I'm trying to think, he was, I guess, in high school age when they came to the United States. And I went back and visited after we were married and saw where they lived. His family was both poor and wealthy at different times. But he had a good Jewish upbringing. He never talked a lot about the negative. He was very positive about being a Jew in Ireland. But they were happy to come to the United States. And when we were there, it was all very positive when we visited.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's right.
He did the jig. Oh, nice. All right, everyone, have a beautiful week. Happy Valentine's Day. And I'll see you next week.
The division between the educated German Jews or the secular Jews and the Orthodox still goes on in this country.
Oh, sure.
There was a whole piece years ago on The Daily Show. I don't know if you ever saw that, but there was a proposed eruv to be put around in West Hampton, and most of the people who objected to it were secular Jews.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
They
surprising.
didn't want those people in their neighborhood.
That wouldn't be surprising.
So, I mean, like,
So was
it
there
never
ever,
stops.
was
Yes,
there
you're
ever
right.
a time in the United States when Jews couldn't own their own property?
Yeah, it is actually. But Mormons got something.
I don't know if they couldn't own property, but they were very,
They were discriminating against,
very
yes.
discriminatory. But I will tell you this, in the 1950s, there were signs in my city, Burbank, which said no Jews and no blacks allowed.
Oh, there was a sign in Glendale, Jews and niggers don't let the sun set on you. And I lived in Glendale.
They're going back. What did you say?
number today. A lot of people are sick. I don't know why people.
That's okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we take our seats, please? Yeah, have something. We even have bagels today, leftover from Sunday. We have bagels today, leftover from Sunday, so this is a real treat. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you please come back to your seats. Welcome to our new people, well, I guess new person who is here. Sharon is joining us. For those of you at home, I'm happy you're there. And I remind those of us who are here to speak into the microphone because the people at home really appreciate it. As for your new name tags, you can just leave them so you don't have to worry about bringing them back. I will be responsible to do that. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce Rabbi Schuldenfrei, who really doesn't need an introduction, so that's his introduction.
I got a little more gray, a little bit more gray, a little less on top.
No, top is okay, but a little bit more gray.
Okay. So good morning, everyone, and to all you millions tuning in from around the world. Yeah. We could be hopeful. So first of all, good morning. Just a little bit of a public service announcement. First of all. I really appreciate the name tags. I think it's great, not only for me, but also I think it's important that we learn one another's names, right? That we're in community. So I really am very appreciative of Susie for making the name tags. And so if you just remember, and Susie, you could leave them in our office, like whatever's, you have your system. Here's like the. It's like there's like rules of like, now this is my third year of a .rel, like in the top 10 commandments, thou shalt not mess with Susie and Rosalie concerning just do what they tell you to do and just shut up, right? So whatever you want is fine, and probably the better idea. I want to tell you about, before I begin, what we're going to be studying together. I wanted to tell you one thing that I'm doing outside of MID, that we're starting a reading cohort. That sounds way more formal than it actually is. It's a program called Reading with the Rabbi. And essentially once every month, once every 6 weeks, I'm going to present a book that I think is interesting or important to be read, and then we will be discussing it. And we will be discussing it in a fashion where if you have not yet read the book or have no intention of ever reading the book, that's okay as well. So I'll bring selections. It's sort of like, when they have like an interview with an author and you can listen and you kind of get it's sort of along that fashion. And the first book that we will be reading is a very interesting book called by a political scientist from Israel, Einat Wilf, who is a former member of the Israeli Knesset. She was both Shimon Peres's chief assistant as well as Yossi Beilein's chief assistant. And Yossi Beilin was the architect of the Oslo Accords. So the question is, why did Oslo fail? What was the failure of the Oslo Accords? And so she writes this book on basically why is there still an Israeli-Palestinian problem? What accounts for what's the biggest issue between the Palestinians and the Israelis? And she writes a book called The War of Return. It's a short book. It's very well researched and a very important read. I will be presenting that book on Tuesday, March 5th at 5 o'clock. So I know the time is intentional. I know that you're going to say, wait a second, it doesn't work for me because of A, B, or C. I'm sorry. But we wanted to, it's at a time where some of the younger parents can come. And so we want to make it at a time that's as accessible for as many people as possible. Yeah, you could download the book for sure. You can buy it. Oh, the question is, can you participate virtually? That's different than downloading the book. Okay, yeah. So here's what you can. I'm not supposed to tell this, but yes, you can. So if you call the office, if you on the flyer, you tell Rachel Freed you can't be there, she'll give you a Zoom link. I will let you know that we're going to ask for the Zoom participants to be passive, because here's what happens: we do a Zoom link. And then people are like, Rabbi, you didn't call on anyone on Zoom. It's like, it's too hard to teach both to an in-person group and like to the Zoom group. It just gets very messy and very difficult to navigate. So if you don't mind like being kind of like a wallflower, then you could certainly do the Zoom link. If you're like feeling a little bit more Jewish, meaning loud, then Zoom is probably not the best option for you. If you like to like let people know what you're thinking or feeling, probably want to come in person. But the book, so you can do that, but we're not advertising that, even though I just did. We'll give you the link if you contact my office or shoot me an email. Let me know. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I don't know how to work the stupid thing either.
No, I wanted to write down the book title.
Oh, the name of the book is The War of Return. The War of Return, and the author's last name is Wilf, W-I-L-F. The War of Return, and the author's name is Wilf, W-I-L-F. And it's on March 5th. So if you'd even have a chance now, you have enough time to read the book. But if you buy the book, rent the book, get the book from the library, or don't even have the book, you could still come and be an equal participant. Again, there will be Zoom, but it will be passive. And Wilf, W-I-L-F. Did it come up?
You said it was March 5th?
March 5th.
That's a Tuesday at 5.
That's Tuesday at 5. That's correct. Okay. And if you want to come, the cafe is also open, so you can get a snack. You could buy we're working on getting a proper license so we could serve different kinds of food. You have to register with the health department. The nerve of them. That's a joke. You want the health department to, yeah, okay. All right, so that is that. And I think I'm doing 3 books in the spring, if memory serves me correctly. All 3 are Israel-based. So for those of you who are wondering, like, where's our discussions around Israel? They're not here in this forum, but they are in that forum. And you are certainly, most of you are members here. If you're not yet, that was good, huh? Yet a member here, then you're certainly welcome anyway to our adult ed programs. Or if you're never going to be a member here, you're still welcome to our adult ed programs. But if you're not a member here, you should be a member somewhere. Okay, good. All right, good. Now that we've established all of that. Okay, good. What's that?
The other rabbi, the one before you, Mark Goodwin.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, is that where?
Very nice rabbi.
Good, he's a good guy. Yeah. Look, you just be a member of a shul, right? Like, we got to stick together as Jews. So, okay. So that is a little bit of the plan. Now, what I want to do today is, it occurred to me for 2 years that I've been teaching something but not explaining anything. And so I want to start with, I want to teach Talmud, which is something that we taught, how many of you participated in MID last year with me? Raise your hands. Who were you here with me last year? Some of you, yeah, Michael, you were part of that. Okay, some of you weren't part of that at all, and that's fine. So last year we studied Talmud together, and how many of you were part of Rabbi Alexander's last class last semester, and that was Talmud? Great. So I don't know if she did this, but today what I'd like to do is to provide an overview of what is the Talmud, why it is important, how it is different from the Tanakh. Okay? So we're going to have three basic questions. Three basic questions. The what is the Talmud? The why it is important, and the how it is different. Yeah, I don't. Okay. Oh, there's the eraser. Okay, so let's use this as a, and this is Talmud. I'll erase the other stuff. Let's start there. I love watching Rabbi Goodman's like notes. Like every time I come in here, I'm like, oh, I wonder what. Ooh, like what happened there? Something good, right, or bad? Probably bad. If it was his, oh, it was bad. I forgot we're teaching Jewish history. American history, you have arrows pointing you to a spot. That's where like something triumphant happened. With Jews, you point to a spot. It's where a bunch of us got killed. So okay, let's get rid of that. Yeah, you see the Protestants and the Catholics. When the Catholics, the Protestants, and the Muslims start mixing it up, usually you know who suffers? The Jews. Okay. Okay. And then last year, whoa. This is a little unstable. Okay. Last year, whoop, doop, doop. Last year, I used a book by a professor from NYU, Jeffrey Rubinstein, is like my central text. And I took all of our Talmudic sources from that text, from that book. And I'm similarly going to do something this year, but I'm going to use this book as my guide because the Talmud's vast, and we'll talk about that in a second. So where am I getting these? Where am I getting most of this from? I'm going to be using this book, which is called The Talmud of Relationships, and it's a book about. She looks at the Talmud and various sugiyot or Talmudic selections on three themes: God, self, and family. Okay. Now, last year's book was kind of like, it was called The Land of Stories, I think was the book's name. And basically, the whole idea was to like Talmudic texts that had these outlandish, crazy stories. The year before that, I think I did Talmudic stories that were based around the theme of women, and that just had like really bizarre narratives, right? So I've kind of like gone bizarre for 2 years, and this year, not so much more as bizarre as like there's questions that ask deeply spiritual questions as well as deeply philosophical questions that ask us, what do we believe? Why do we think the text is saying this? So it's a little bit more, less like, less like special effects and more, wow, what's going on? But that being said, the text that we probably won't get to this week, but we'll get to it next week, involves time travel. So there's some special effects in there. Okay, so you come to, you leave MID. You go to your Mahjong game in the afternoon. How many of you play Mahjong this afternoon? How many this week you're playing Mahjong? Right. And you're playing with your lovely friend who's not Jewish. And you're like, I know. All right. They don't play Mahjong? It's so true. It's like, okay, so there was one non-Jew. Okay. So you're walking your dog down the block, and you encounter the one non-Jew who lives on your block. There's two. Okay, so you encounter a lovely person who's not of the Jewish faith. And that person says, Esther, I know that you have been coming to MID, because everyone knows what MID is, even if you're not Jewish. I know you've been coming to MID for years, And rumor in town has it, that you have been the beneficiary of Talmud study with both Rabbi Leslie Alexander and Rabbi Brian Schuldenfrei. And so we would like you to know, like, what is the Talmud? If someone asks you, what is the Talmud? I will send them to him. No, don't send them to Chabad. No. Not to. But here's the thing. What the Talmud does, in a way, let me get back to this point. It democratizes Judaism. What the Talmud essentially states, and if I don't make this point, is that Judaism used to be the purview of a few, and the Talmud opens it up to the many. And then the statement of literacy that the Talmud makes, particularly with the sage who we're going to study, Rabbi Akiva, says, you know what? Anyone is able, and everyone should have the access to Talmud. So that being said, so we tend to think like, I don't want anyone to think like you're less of a Jew than a guy with a long beard, because it's just not true. In fact, and I just told this to B'nai Mitzvah kids, this is not the subject. If you never made a Baruch Atah again, if you never like opened the Torah, you never had another bit of matzah, if you came, true story, one year I was cleaning up in my old synagogue in Palos Verdes after Yom Kippur. I went to the back of the sanctuary. You know, you put all the chairs out in the back, and in the way back of the sanctuary, there was a McDonald's bacon and cheeseburger wrapper in the synagogue on Yom Kippur. Now, so you can say like, oh, well, guess what? The person who ate that bacon cheeseburger on Yom Kippur is just as Jewish as I am, just as Jewish as you are. Judaism is different than other class. That's why people don't know what to do with the Jews. And that's actually what anti-Zionists don't know. Like, they use this against us too. Because they're like, why did Jews need a homeland? They're a religion. No. Religion is one aspect of who we are. It's not the exclusive aspect of what we are. In fact, like when Abraham is commanded to lech lecha, to go out, God says, I'm going to make you a great nation. Not a great religion, a great nation. Meaning, Ken and I are not in a mitzvah point competition. Like, you're Jewish because you're Jewish. Now, look, I'm a rabbi. I want you to Baruch and Atah. I want you all here on Saturday mornings. I want you all to keep kosher. I want you to all find Shabbat. But you not or doing that, first of all, I don't judge it. And secondly, it doesn't make you more or less Jewish. So someone with a long beard has no greater claim on the tradition than you do. Other religions, Christianity, you believe in Jesus, you're in. You don't believe in Jesus, you're no longer a Christian. Same thing with Islam. In Islam, there's a doctrine of faith. You believe in Muhammad as the last and ultimate prophet. If you don't believe that, you're out. There's no you're in or out. There's a clear demarcation. With Judaism, you can see that same friend. We're going to give that person a hassle. They're going to say, what do you believe in? It's not like that. Bridget and I can have very different belief systems. This is also the Talmud. Very different belief systems. We're both in. You don't lose your Judaism. So that's why the world doesn't know what to do with us, because we defy classification. Yes, we have a religion, and that's an aspect of who we are, but it's not the exclusive aspect of who we are. We are a people. And just like we are a people, like the Turks are a people, like the Kurds are a people, like they had rights to national. That's why when under the Ottoman Empire, when they divided up the land, they were you looked at the Ottomans were like, hey, wait a second. This is in the wane of the Ottoman Empire, the First World War. They're like, we have to give different people different lands. So the Ottoman Empire is coming to an end. So the by then, Palestine, everyone knew that meant Jewish. There was no Palestinian at the time. Now there is, but there wasn't at the time. Everyone knew that that meant Jewish because we were a people, and we still are a people. This is all a big sidetrack. Okay, you have a question. Sure, why not? And then we got to go define Talmud, and I'm probably going to go way over time. No, I'll repeat your question.
Okay. I'm wondering if the ultra-Orthodox also feel the way that you are describing us as one people, no matter how much religion practice we might do.
The question was, do the ultra-Orthodox do they agree with me? And so the question is, I made a lot of assertions. Guess what? If they don't agree with me, they are wrong.
All right.
Okay? So they're entitled to be wrong, but they would be wrong. It's just not. And actually, I will compliment them, Eileen, that Chabad actually gets that. Chabad gets that in a big way. Look, let's pay. I'm equally critical. Let's recognize the value of what Chabad has added. So this this is actually very Talmudic because we haven't even discussed the Talmud yet. But I'm sure I'll get to these definitions. But what Chabad has done successfully, and in many ways has informed the rest of us, is that post-World War II, when our post-World War II and the move to suburbia, the Jewish move in suburbia was to show we have arrived. We are American, and we are settled, and we are accomplished. And there's different ways that manifested itself. The over-the-top bar bat mitzvah, right? It was a way of the Jewish couple. It wasn't about the kid. It was about the parents showing they had arrived, that they were secure, they had wealth, they had friends, they had the bar bat mitzvah. Also, the building up of synagogues. The way we built synagogues post-World War II was very interesting. I once did a paper on this. We wanted them to be big, but not too big. We wanted them to show that we had arrived. We actually wanted them to be the second biggest building on the block. I'm serious. What was the first biggest building on the block? The church. Don't make it bigger than the church. They may get upset. Just a little bit smaller than the church, but make it plenty big. And have building campaigns and big things and grand chandeliers and whatever. Build up your synagogues. Because it was a way of, am I being critical of it? It made sense. It was a way of, I'm sorry, I'm buzzing here. It's probably my kid at school. No, he's not. Okay. Yeah, one of my kids. Put your phone down and go back to math class. Okay. Math class. Teenagers, they don't talk to you, they just text you. So my kids, they don't talk to me anymore. When I come in the door at home, they ignore me. But when they need something, they will text me. So Jews after World War II, we built these enormous, beautiful buildings. Chabad did something very, very smart. And this is the last Chabad, the Rebbe. He did something, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, like the whole Messiah thing. That was a bit much. That's a lot too much. However, and he should have stopped it, and he didn't. That was a mistake he made. I have a lot of feelings about him, about Israel, but I'm not going to go there. But what I will say that he did that was brilliant, and he transformed now what we're all doing in Jewish circles, is he said, it's not about buildings, it's about people. And what he did differently was the rest of the Hasidic world looked at modernity and built the wall higher to separate them from us. They looked at modernity and they got scared. And they built both literal walls and figurative walls. They wanted space between what they thought was a toxic secular culture and the the homogeneity of their religious expression. So if you look like it's Satmar, or go, you know, or I was just in Israel the other week, I couldn't keep up with the different kinds of Hasidic, like, branches there were. They want nothing to do with me. They're like, we're going to outlast you. You are going to be absorbed, and we are going to build a wall, and we're going to stay safe. Now, we could talk about that another time. But what Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Chabad Rebbe, did, he said, wait a second. We're not going to build a wall up. We're going to take away all walls, and we're going to go right into it. We're going to face off against that toxic culture. And we're going to meet people where they're at and welcome them in. That was not the philosophy of Chabad up until Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Up until that time, they were very much aligned with other Hasidic branches. Keep away from modernity. Modernity is big and scary, and we don't know what to do with it. And the Chabad Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson was the first one who says, no, we're going straight in, and we're going to attack it. And we're going to welcome people. We're going to say to Berna and to Nadia, we're going to say Shabbat Shalom. We're going to invite them to light Shabbat candles. We're going to ask Ken if he put on tefillin in the morning. And that's what they did. And what they did then is, so they took the wall down. They said, how are we going to go out to all these places? No, we're not going to build buildings. We're just going to plop someone down. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be elaborate. But we're going to invest in people and relationships. Guess what? Every rabbi who's smart is doing the same thing now. We're just doing it 30 years later than they did. So, commend Chabad for where they are. Me as a rabbi, I'm deeply influenced by the philosophy of Chabad. There's obvious differences, and I have disagreements with them, profound ones. But that move to focus on relationships and people and not structures and buildings was brilliant. And so that's what we're all doing. Whatever synagogue you're a member of, or and if a Jewish community is not doing it, shame on them. Okay. So what is the Talmud, your friend asks you? This is all they walk up to you and they say, what is the Talmud? What do you respond? I'll repeat your response for the audience. Someone want to tell me. They say to you, what's the Talmud? You've been studying it for 2 years. Tell me what the Talmud is, and be mindful that they've got things to do for the rest of the day. So you can't occupy their 3 hours. So in a sentence or two, in a sentence.
It's interpretation.
Okay, Eileen says, it's interpretations. Good. The Mishnah and the Gemara. So one is a very technical definition, and one is a very you're explaining it. More is what it does and what that's more technical. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Bridget. Discussion. Excellent. So everything, we're all adding layers. It is for sure interpretations. It is the Mishnah and Gemara. It is discussions. Nadia? Yes. It's brilliantly woven together where the discussion, two rabbis can be seemingly having a discussion. They never met each other. They never lived in the same place. They never knew each other, and it's through the centuries. There's different rabbis of different ages, and they're layered in there together.
Relevant to daily life?
Very much so, relevant to daily life. Excellent. Good. Other things, what is the Talmud? Berna, go ahead. Good. Okay. I don't want, there are legal suggestions, but I want to be very clear here. The Talmud is not a book of law. There are legal discussions, but it doesn't tell you the answer. Most of the time, over 90% of Talmudic arguments or interpretations are left open. Rabbi 1 says this, Rabbi 2 says this, then they take it through the generations. There's a later rabbi, there's an earlier rabbi, they're bringing in sources, they're showing the discussion animating, but they don't conclude, like to say, that guy's wrong, this one's right. Now, sometimes they do, but over 90% of the time, they don't. Later rabbis, like Rambam, or like in works called like the Shulchan Aruch, are like, okay, we got to decide what to do. Those are legal books. The Mishnah Torah by Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, those are legal works. They're not discussions. They're not interpretations. They don't even have the Mishnah and the Gemara anymore. In fact, Rambam says, you don't need to learn Talmud. Just read my book, and you'll know exactly what to do in Judaism. Those are books of law. The Talmud, if you wanted the Talmud to be a book of law, it would be a lot shorter. It'd be a lot less confusing. And it would be, I mean, it just would be a totally different work. It's not a book of law. It's a book of ideas, some concerning legal practices for sure. Who did I miss? Go ahead, Nadia. It covers all aspects of life. Good, and I want to get to that in a second too. Ken, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. And then Ken.
If you want a good example,
Go ahead.
just look at the Passover Seder. How many plagues were there in Egypt?
Right.
And you have all of these different rabbis answering.
Right. If you look at the Ken's pointing out a very particular part in the Passover Seder where it's not clear how many plagues there were, and there's a Talmudic discussion about it, and that discussion is retold in the Passover Haggadah. Many of us, it's right after you dip, right? And many of us go, we kind of gloss over that because people are hungry already. And it's time to eat, bring out, and you've worked on your brisket for 3 hours. But by the way, this is another, and then I'll get into a few historical comments about the Talmud. People spend dozens of hours preparing the meal. Spend a fraction of that time preparing the Seder. Don't let your book crack open when you sit down at the Passover Seder. You spent like hours on this elaborate meal. Know who's at your Seder and prepare a Seder, the content of which speaks to the people who are there. Is it more discussion-based? Is it more artistic? Is it more whatever it is, but give a little bit of thought. If you're going to spend like a little less on the meal, a little bit more on the discussion. You can use canned gefilte fish this year, but just, people are like, that's a shanda. But just give some discussion. Okay, now I want to get into the Talmud. Okay, I want to turn back the clock. A little bit of Jewish history. 2 weeks ago, I was in Jerusalem. And I was in Jerusalem, and we had a delegation of 10 members of Adat Ariel who came and volunteered with me through the Jewish National Fund. And so we weeded a farm out that was right on the border of Gaza and Egypt because the farmer was in danger of losing his crop. We cleared out a kibbutz that had become overgrown post-October 7th because that kibbutz was deemed safe enough to host the regional elementary school, and they want to reconvene because people can't move back to their houses in the south if it's not safe to send your kid to school. So a kibbutz of 500 people, kibbutz Kavulot, for those who are keeping track, they're a kibbutz of a few, 500 people maybe. They're like, great, we're going to host a school for 400 kids. Wow, a community of 500 hosting a school for 400 kids, that's a big undertaking. But how could they say no? They didn't. And the whole place is overgrown, so we had to go there and we had to clean it up. Okay. After we were done volunteering, we baked for the army, we packed boxes for the army, we hugged soldiers, we did lots of different things. After, we spent a Shabbat in Jerusalem. And I was walking, with some members of our delegation past a wall. And it's a wall. It's very interesting in the old city of Jerusalem. The walls around the old city of Jerusalem are from the Ottoman Empire, right? Middle Ages. But the inside, there's a wall from the 8th century BCE. And it is likely that 8th century, right around there, old, that if you look in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah advises the king of Judea at that time, Hezekiah, to build a wall because he looks north and he sees the Assyrians are coming. The reason that the Judea was able to coalesce under King David as an empire was because there was a lull in power between the south. Who's in the south? Egypt. And to the north, lots of different empires. But then, so there's King David, King Solomon. Then you continue, the empire the Jewish state breaks up into two. There's Judea and the south. That's chiefly made of the Judeans and the Benjaminites. And then in the north are the rest of the tribes. So Hezekiah, who's being advised by the prophet Isaiah, looks to the north and sees the Assyrians, and he sees them coming. And so he builds a wall to protect them and to protect the Judeans against conquest from the Assyrians. We're not sure why he's successful, but he is. And one of those walls has been recently rediscovered in the old city of Jerusalem. And you can stand right by it. It's incredible. I mean, you're talking about a 3,000-year-old wall that protected Jews 3,000 years ago. It's incredible. A little less than 3,000, 3,700 years ago. 2,700 years ago. It's incredible. But Hezekiah was only partially successful because after King Hezekiah, then what happens? After the Assyrians make mincemeat of the 10 northern tribes. Those are the lost tribes of Israel. Who knows where they were? There's lots of theories. Every few years, there's an article in the paper. This one claims to be the lost tribes of Israel. And you're like, great, welcome to our life of neuroses, not an inability to digest dairy and anti-Semitism. Like, welcome to the club. So the Babylonians take over. The Assyrians destroy the northern kingdom. That's Samaria. And then Judea is still around. Fast forward, the Assyrians fade. Who takes their place? The Babylonians. Guess what? The Babylonians are more successful. The Babylonians destroy the first temple, and then they send the Jews into exile. And that was their way, by the way. You used to uproot a people from their land and send them into exile as your way of getting rid of acculturating them or absorbing them into your population, right? You lose your national identity when you're separated from your land. Historically, that worked out, except for one people. That's us. And so what happens then is the Babylonians send us into exile. So we go into exile, but then the Babylonians, and this is thank God for the Persians, because the Persians saved the Jews. Now we're not friends with the Iranians who are the Persians, but back then they treated us good. I have a friend of mine who names his two twins. He's a Jewish man, he's Persian, named them Cyrus and Darius. And those are good names. They're not like Tanakh names. They're not it's not like Moshe or Yaakov. But those are good names because those were Persian rulers who helped the Jews go back to their land. Because the Persians, Darius and Cyrus the Great, had a different philosophy than the Babylonians. They didn't care if we celebrated a religion. All they wanted was to know that you paid your taxes on time. Ken, you can go put a kippah on your head. You can read the Torah from today till tomorrow. We'll even help you build a new temple in Jerusalem. Just pay your taxes on time, and all is good. That was not the Babylonian theory. So the Persians make a radical shift in foreign policy from the Babylonians, and it saves the Jewish people. Because now the Jews are able to return to their land. Guess what? Cyrus the Great says, everyone go home. Guess what the Jews say? No, thank you. No, thank you. Life is pretty good in Teaneck, New Jersey, or like where, they're in Babylon at the time. They liked living in the diaspora. It was comfortable. Even then, getting people to move to make Aliyah was difficult. But eventually, he enacts programs and he has people go back, like Ezra and Nehemiah and all sorts of folks in Jewish history. They go back, they build the second temple. All is well for a little bit. There's the Greeks, there's the Maccabees, the Romans, the fall of the Hasmoneans, as the Hasmoneans are the descendants of the Maccabees. The Maccabees make themselves king, then they become corrupt. They're called the Hasmoneans. Then eventually they are replaced by puppet Roman rulers like Herod the Great, who builds out the second temple even further, makes it bigger. But at the time, if you were a Jew, and by the way, just 2 weeks ago I was walking, and we're walking towards the Kotel. The Kotel is a wall here. It's a wall that actually goes way, way down. Today, if this is the surface, you can take a tunnel tour all the way down here. Now, the Kotel is just like this little piece, like right here. Well, it's, I'm sorry. It would be, this would be the Kotel, or the Western Wall. But the wall extends all the way further here. The reason this is significant is it's close to the Temple Mount. This is where the Dome of the Rock is. So this is significant spiritually because of its proximity to this. But the wall continues all the way over here. So we're over here, and then we're over here, and there are these little arches. And I'm walking these two women who are part of our group, and I was like, what does this look like? And they're like, oh, it looks like stores. That's exactly what it was. It was a place where Jews used to buy their sacrifices to then go up and make a sacrifice. Who would be able to make a sacrifice in Second Temple times? Who would be able to shop at this mall over here? Okay, the priests stayed in business over here. They took the sacrifice. But who, like, out of your regular people, what kind of person would you have to be? The Kohanim, okay, I'm asking a bad question. The Kohanim would actually do the sacrifice. You had to be pretty wealthy, right? You couldn't be a schlepper to buy, like, to leave your land in the care of somebody, to leave, to make a journey to Jerusalem from wherever you live. Now there's a train between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. There wasn't a high-speed rail back then. And then to be able to buy something and to be able then to sacrifice that thing, that was a luxury. Average Jews weren't doing that. Maybe middle-class Jews needed to save up their whole lives to do that once. But what was happening there was the temple, or the sacrifices, which start all the way back in the Torah. There was no temple in the Torah, but the idea of sacrifices is largely a practice of the wealthy. Even though the Torah tries to make it affordable, the centralization of worship, meaning that the temple existed in Jerusalem, made it difficult for people to afford. You had to have discretionary income to be able to go to Jerusalem. Joe Jew, the average Jew, probably didn't get to Jerusalem in his or her life, especially her life. But guess what happens? In the year 70, You remember I told you about King Hezekiah and the walls and da-da-da-da. Guess what? It doesn't work anymore. The second temple, gone. And now, faced with an empire where we increasingly go into diaspora, we had to figure out a way of making our religion portable. And so what we did was, instead of becoming a religion of sacrifices and fixed rites for an exclusive group of few, we became a religion of ideas and discussions open to everybody. And you see the birth of that religion, which is very different than the one in the Bible, in the Talmud. So that's not the only, by the way, like revolution. There's another revolution. And it's called, so like, you know, like Christians are like, oh, I don't like your Bible. You know, God's a bit much. And so they have a reaction text to it, which is the Gospels. The Talmud is contemporary. The Talmud emerges around the same time, a little bit after and a little bit before, but the Gospels are written at the time that the Talmud is coming together. The Gospels are the Christian response to what do you do next. There's no temple. How do you live religiously? So that's the Christians go one way. The Jews go a different way. I could talk about the difference, but basically the Talmud is to say, instead of sacrifices, because we can't do them anymore anyway, where there's a few, we're going to make the study of Torah, not the 5 books themselves, but thinking of Torah like an expansive view of our tradition. Discourse and the dissemination of ideas and like back and forth, that's what our religion's going to be about. And that's portable. We can take that back to Babylon. We could take that to Los Angeles. We could take that to Poland. We could take that to Africa. We could take that anywhere. And so what the Talmud does is the Talmud represents the birth of rabbinic Judaism. The birth of, it's a revolution. Because while the Talmud will often try and root itself in biblical text. In other words, the Talmud will say, I have a great idea. And it'll present an idea and say, there's a proof text from the Bible. It's forced. They're trying to root themselves in the Bible because the Bible is old and accepted and canonized. Well, not canonized yet, but revered. But the Talmud is a revolution against the Bible. It's a complete revolution against the Bible. The Bible is essentially, the whole theme of the Bible is believe in God or else. And that's not the Talmud. The Talmud's like, what does it mean to believe? What does that demand of an individual? What do you have to do? Can we believe different things? What do you think about this? What do I think about this? That's the Talmud. The Talmud then in texture feels like a telephone conversation between friends who share openly, and sometimes it gets hot and heated. And you discuss different ideas and different things. You talk about your families. You talk about your professions. You talk about the state of the world. You talk about government and your relationship to government. You talk about your bodies. You talk about your health. You talk about your sexuality. And often, just like a discussion, like you're talking with a friend and you're like, wait a second, I bring up a topic, I should stop, we're not going to come to a conclusion, and you move on. That's the Talmud. The Talmud feels like a phone conversation or a series of phone conversations. But what you are witnessing is a religious revolution, a revolution in Judaism, where Judaism is changing in the beginning of the post-temple period, so after the year 70, figuring out if Judaism is going to survive, it can't be temple reliant anymore because there is no more temple. So how do we take a next step? And the ability of Judaism to evolve and change is, I think, what saved us. And the brilliance of making it a religion, like in some ways, in many ways, like I'm not waiting for the third temple to come. Because again, we're going to have a temple. First of all, I think it's crazy. But a temple in Jerusalem for a select few. But the Talmud, like, I printed up these sheets. It's acceptable to everyone. I have this on this phone. I have an app that's the largest collection. All those books on my shelf. You're all welcome to my office. Most of them I don't need to have anymore. I mean, I love them, but like they're all right here. I can go and it's right there in beautiful print. I can print whatever I want. It's right there in front of me. It's all good. That is very much in the spirit of the Talmud. The Talmud was an introduction of ideas. Now, when you see the birth of the Talmud, so the Talmud starts being written down. The earliest text of the Talmud is written by the year 200. It's a collection of the first primary rabbinic thoughts. It's called the Mishnah. The Mishnah is kind of boring, actually, because it's terse, and it just says, like, people, like you can recite the Shema from this time to this time. This one disagrees. He thinks from that time to that time. It's kind of boring. The Gemara, which is a collection of later discussions, really becomes animated and non-authoritative and open. And then you put the Mishnah and the Gemara together, that's the Talmud. And the Talmud, we've been studying the Talmud. So the Talmud, the Mishnah is probably completed around the year 200. So it took a little bit of time after the destruction of the temple to get it together, but you see the birth of rabbinic Judaism right there. And as people are going out into the diaspora, it becomes more and more central. And now it becomes, in many ways, in fact, this Rabbi Amy Schneierman, she makes the point, like if you want to know about Judaism, there's much more, like, it's interesting that we study we have a Parsha HaShavua, right? The Torah, the portion of the week. And we go through it every, by the way, get a bar bat mitzvah kid to talk about Leviticus. That's a lot of fun. And sometimes I wonder if we're making a mistake. By the end of my career, I'm for sure going to change something. Like, let's give them 10 Talmudic texts to study with their parents and say, pick one that you think is meaningful and talk about this on your bar bat mitzvah. And then tell them, yeah, we're going to read from the Torah. This is a collection of what we used to believe. This is like what more is more, because the Talmud is much more, like the Talmud is what animates the ideas of the Talmud, like normative Jewish practice, they come from the Talmud. Now, there are ideas that are tossed aside in the Talmud or that never gain traction. But guess what? I'll give you one idea and then I'll close. People look at the Christians and they're like, what is this, like, you really believe that Jesus, came to, came back? Isn't that a little bit much? Like, where does that come from? It comes from the Talmud. What? It comes from the Talmud. It's right there in the Talmud. Because the early Christians were Jews, and they were versed in these ideas. But in Judaism, there's lots of ideas in the Talmud. So when people say, I always get calls from reporters. I'm writing an article on Messianism. What's the Jewish idea of Messianism? Good luck explaining that. I wrote a 20-page paper on Jewish views of Messianism because they're all in the Talmud. Now you could say, what sticks? I don't know. Prayer seemed to stick. The idea of prayer as a way of replacement for sacrifices and learning as a replacement for sacrifices, that all stuck. But there are lots of ideas in the Talmud. And so together, and this is what I'm going to close with, we'll explore some of those ideas. So what I hope that we did today is that we talked about what the Talmud was. A book of Jewish ideas that emerge after the destruction of the Second Temple. Maybe there's some root before the destruction, but they really become front and center. Why is it important? Because it shifted our focus from a ritual-based religion that was built around the temple to a portable religion that allowed us our survival in the diaspora. How it is different? It's different in that it's conversational and it's ideas and it's kind of non-authoritative, and it's also not top-down. A little bit top-down, but it's open to all. So like you're going to meet next week Rabbi Akiva. And in many ways in rabbinic literature, Rabbi Akiva parallels Moses. Because he, for lots of different reasons, but one of the reasons is he's late to the party. Moses discovers that he's Jewish very late. Rabbi Akiva, like, right, he's like, wait a second, I thought I was Pharaoh's kid. Rabbi Akiva is an ignoramus until he's 40. He's illiterate until he's 40 years old. The message there is very clear that one of the most celebrated rabbis and perhaps the most authoritative rabbi is illiterate until he's 40 is a message. Whether it's literally true or a story, it communicates a value. Hey, wait a second, it's never too late. And it's open to any one of us. You can be a schlepper shepherd like Akiva, middle-aged schlepper shepherd, and you can become the greatest rabbi of all time. To be a Kohen at this temple, your dad had to be a Kohen, your dad's dad had to be a Kohen, your dad's 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 dad. You had to start out with Aaron. Be a rabbi? Tuchas latish. Sit down, learn something, you can be a rabbi. And then we, in the spirit of that, have changed that and say, by the way, this is a message not only for the boys, for the girls as well. We'll begin our Talmud discussion next week. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's nice to see everyone, and we'll talk more in the coming week. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Hi. Oh, I have a quick question for both of you. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you know what? I'm going to bring it to the. Well, thank you. It's very sweet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it to the office, but then we're going to give you a donation. It's a donation. Yeah. We'll credit your account. We'll do something.
Okay.
I'll tell them that.
I mean, we don't shop at Amazon, so I'm like, I hope it's still good.
I'm sure it is. It has it. I'm sure it is. And if not, okay. I have a quick question. Can you stick around for a second?
So what I just want to tell you what happened yesterday.
Okay.
We were on a hike with my neighbors, and we're walking up this hill and getting to like a stopping point, and then this woman approaches. I was walking with another woman, and she approaches us and she says, "So, what do you think about the situation in Israel?" Just out of the blue. So I said, "Well, it's really complicated," and I was ready to walk on. You know, I said, I don't really want to discuss it.
Yeah, a stranger, right?
Yeah, stranger. I don't know who she is, what she is. And so then she says, well, Israel shouldn't have been there. It should have been put somewhere else. I said, okay, we're not going to discuss this. I said, don't get me started on that. You know, I was like,
I have a few places that she can go.
yeah, really. It's like, you know. It was so weird. It's just, you know, stranger, yeah.
The world is nice. I mean, who would think to like the chutzpah to come up to someone and be like, by the way, I would like to disclaim you of your ancestral homeland and tell you that it has no business being where it is.
Exactly.
You know,
So
have a nice day.
I think what happened was that Mark Kurtz told her, she had encountered the group before, and he said, well, we're from a synagogue. And then when she saw us walking, and my Mogan David was visible, so, you know, it was like.
Actually, when she first came up to us, there was a whole group of maybe 10
Yeah.
men and women. She didn't say anything to us, just answered. And we said, we're from a synagogue.
She
And then
picked
he-
up the stragglers.
Yeah.
She picked you off the weak ones in the back. She's like, all right, I'll get them.
By the way, I grew up in Teaneck. I don't know what you're referencing.
It was the first thing I could come up with. I like Teaneck. Good kosher Chinese food.
Did you mention a Monday night at the service?
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
we
left.
wanted to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought I heard my name. I didn't.
Yeah. Do you have a private minute for a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you an update on my family.
Yeah.
So they went back at the end, well, on December 31st, actually. They flew back. She is lovely. She is absolutely lovely, my niece. So they're living in Ranana. And because they don't feel safe up in New York, they go up there on the weekends, but she wants the kids in school in Ranana. Okay, so they're there like about a week when those terrorists come into Ranana. And the oldest one, you met the three boys, the oldest one is at his junior high school, and he's in school waiting to go home, and they capture one of the terrorists right outside his school. That was the guy who ran over a bunch of kids, and one of the kids had to have both legs amputated, and this is happening. He's inside, and so that's what they go home to because her sister-in-law convinced her Ranana is safer than any place else in this world. So that's their reality. But you know, the kids have made friends in the schools. You know, they're you know, other than that extreme insanity. But anyhow, they're back. But I will, and I thank you again for your help. I think you were right. I don't think she could handle it. She was she couldn't be away from her children to go to school. And I think the kids would have done well, but she couldn't. And
You
it, you know
gave her a
what?
place of love and time.
Exactly. So I think the way, and she knew that options were available, and that was important. So I thank you for that very, very, very much.
Just wanted to introduce myself again, Sharon.
Hi,
From
Sharon.
Detroit,
It's nice to
remember?
see you,
Okay,
Sharon, from
yes.
Detroit. How are you?
Yes.
Are you
and
still doing the book club?
I'm doing the book club.
Oh, good. You're
really.
in my office like once a month on Thursdays.
Yes, we love it.
Oh, good.
Okay, so,
Oh, good.
and this was great. This is my first time taking a class.
Oh, good.
So I enjoyed it very
Come to that
much.
other book club that I'm doing, the nonfiction.
Yeah, that sounded great.
Okay.
Yeah, I did Melton School for 2 years with my 90-year-old mother, so that was really a treat.
Have you met Warren and Melinda?
We met. I think we met at something. Yes. So it's something. Yeah. And I know Adrian and from book club.
They're always here. It's good. We like
Anyway,
it.
just wanted to say
Thank
hi.
you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to
This
see
was
you.
very good today. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Yeah, let's just move on.
And so I just did sit in resolution from you, or if you, so one of our members was approached by one of our members was, yeah, let's just go, let's go. All right, I'm gonna spend some time with Rita over here.
Do you want his phone number, or you just want Martin's?
What's that?
You don't want his number, you just want Martin's
I
number?
don't wanna talk to him. Yeah, I'll talk to Martin. Yeah, yeah.
So you want us to email his phone number?
Or email or call him up and give him your number.
And that's Adrian.